on, everybody? Welcome back. Here is episode 3 of the CRX restoration. Now, as you can see, I removed the seats. In the process of removing the seats, I did find that one of the brackets was broken. So that explains why the seat was just wobbling everywhere. So I went ahead and hit up my buddy Jeremiah from CRX Farm. Those of you who are huge CRX fans know who Jeremiah is over at CRX Farm. I hit him up, asked him for a set of driver's side seat rails, and he sent them over. So as you can see, that is the tab that actually broke off right here. Very, very thin, brittle piece of metal. I guess just 34 years old, decided to break. So Jeremiah sent this over, as well as a passenger side bumper bracket. So that way the bumper can actually properly mount up. Now, as you can see, it does have some previous damage from people drilling in some self-tapping screws. They're actually supposed to go into these two holes right here. So Jeremiah, thank you very much. CRX Farm, you can find him on Facebook. Look him up. He has tons and tons of CRX parts. Hit him up. He will get you set up. So on to the car. I have been making a lot of progress with the wiring that was all botched up, fixing that. I did get the car to start. I ran an external switch to the starter and to the battery just to make sure that it could start and crank over. And it does. Now, from there, I had to run over into the dash wiring. Now, there was a lot of useless wires just underneath the dash, hooked up, running to absolutely nothing. Like, some of these weren't even doing anything. Like right here, we had a relay switch. The relay's not on it right now, but we had a relay switch that was just hooked up to absolutely nothing. So I went ahead, made everything back to its stock form, and man, does it look so much more clean under here. I still got to go ahead and electrical tape up this loom, but as soon as I do that, this thing is going to look very, very mint. Now, in the process of removing some of these wires, I removed an old stereo power wire. I was running all the way back over here to where they had an amp in the cargo tray cover, whatever you want to call it. So I went ahead, pulled up all the carpet on this side, exposed this ECU, and what did I find? This has been converted from OBD0 to OBD1. So huge plus, because now everything is starting to make sense. I still have a couple of stereo wires right here. Haven't debated on what I'm gonna do with them just yet, because I got sidetracked as soon as I saw this ECU and I saw that we were working with OBD1. So I immediately started troubleshooting the dash wiring to the fuse box. So I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Jesse. I hit him up on Facebook. He was actually the previous owner of the CRX. He told me everything that he had done to this car, whether it was a B16 swap, D15 swap, you name it. He has had his hands on this car the most. He knows everything about this car. He told me that he did the OBD0 to OBD1 conversion. He told me about all of the previous issues that it's had. He's super informative, and I appreciate you so much, Jesse, for reaching out and us talking about this car and learning more about its history. All right, so we're diving into this fuse box wiring. Now, this little 4-pin connector will plug over here into the fuse box. This is running directly to the ignition switch. So this black and white, yellow, red and white and it should be a black and yellow. These 4 wires are going to be running main power to the fuse box, or from the fuse box, excuse me. Now, the wiring, if you can see here, they have a little relay right here. Now, in the schematics right here, this is your ignition wiring. Sorry for the glare. Let's see if I can turn this flashlight off. All right, so in here, right, we have our black and yellow, black and white, yellow and white and red. There is no fuse, there is no relay whatsoever going to that 4-pin connector onto the fuse block. So right now I am in the process of getting rid of and finding out where they have these wires tied into. For example, this one right here, there's no reason why this should be on the car, or at least I don't know yet why this should be on the car. But it's only 2 wires and it's plugged into absolutely nothing. So, and the car has been running. I got it to run by running the external switch and starting the car. So we're just gonna go ahead and start splicing these wires back into their stock positions, and then hopefully whenever I turn the key, we should be able to turn this car on without having to use an external switch. Alright, so here is the butt connector that I was using for the external switch. So I can get this out. This is plugged directly onto the starter solenoid. Here is the stock one, stock wiring. Let's go ahead and plug that up. Easy day. Now, get rid of all this, hopefully forever. Alright, move this out of the way. And I can put on positive, and then the negative, get that away. From there. Really got to put a terminal boot on that. Alright. Now let's secure these connections up and get this thing started. As you can see, I ripped out a ton of old stereo wiring. This one I'm still kind of tracing back, but here is all the wiring that was just randomly spliced in pretty terribly, and there we go. Now it looks much better. Connected everything up, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a start. All right, sorry for the bad angle. I currently have the seats out, so let's see what we can get. Key in. Nothing. Absolutely nothing on the dash. No power. Not even turning over. Okay. Let's see where we messed up. Now, in the previous clip, you saw that I was attempting to start the car. Now, it did not start, didn't turn over, no dash lights, no nothing. So I immediately was stumped. I sat in this car for 30 minutes figuring out what I was gonna do with this car, because when I disconnected the 4-pin connector from the fuse panel and the 5-pin connector right here from the ignition switch, I was shooting all of the wires and they were shooting good continuity. I was looking at all of my schematics, looking at videos online, everything was shooting good. So I was a little bit stumped. So I sat in the car for 30 minutes and I said, you know what, maybe I have a bad ignition switch. So I went ahead, took a 7mm ratchet and pulled off that switch. Once I did that, I looked at all the contacts and I cleaned them off. Once I cleaned them off, I went ahead and made sure that the actual keyway that's extending all the way through this column, and made sure that that wasn't broken.
and it was actually turning over. Well, that was good. The switch was good, and all I did was clean it up, reinstall it, hook everything back up, checked my battery voltage, and it was at 6 volts. Felt like a complete idiot. So I went ahead, put the battery charger on there, and now we're sitting at 12 volts. And I think this battery may be a bad battery. So I went ahead, connected everything, and now we have dash lights. So now that we got dash lights, I did a once over the whole engine bay, made sure that everything was connected. I was checking power, I was shooting through all of these little relays, making sure that everything was right. Now that we have power, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the seat bracket. I'm gonna go ahead and replace that, so that way I can install them back into the car. And hopefully, we can get this car started, and maybe we can get some rolling shots of this car. Driver's seat is in, doing a once over the vehicle. Gonna make sure that I have all my tools, and I think we should be ready for a start. Now, this was the stereo wiring that was ran all the way to the back of the cargo area. Once again, this was the external switch that was previously ran by the owner. I was using this to go ahead and make sure that the starter was good and the motor would turn over. I went ahead, double checked everything over here. Let's go ahead, disconnect our battery tender and move this out of the way. All right, so batteries connected, that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and put this glove right here because I don't want this positive terminal lead to touch this intake like it was previously. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover this up. We're not gonna be doing any kind of pulls or anything crazy in this. Went ahead, made sure everything that I connected was still there. Starter solenoid is connected. Seats are in. Let's tidy up this dash wiring real quick. Also, I ended up making a jumper for this clutch safety switch. I tried to go ahead and get it all the way up there on the clutch pedal safety switch itself, but it's a very, very tight space, extremely difficult to get to. So I went ahead, just made a jumper, so now I shouldn't even need to press the clutch pedal in. Okay, so battery is connected, dash is now hooked up, seats are installed. I tightened down the oil pan drain plug because it was previously stripped out. So I don't see why we can't start this car right now. So let's go ahead and give it a start.
We got lights. And she runs. Heck yeah, baby. All right, here we go. She is alive. Running very well. Also, forgot to mention, this is a CRX DX trim level. So this was originally DMFI, I think is what it's called, and it got switched to MPFI. And that is why we have OBD2 connector right there, or OBD1, excuse me, for fuel injectors. So we're idling down. That's good. We have oil. We have oil pressure. Everything is looking, or excuse me, we have coolant. We're gonna let this warm up. We have our radio right there. Don't know if we have any tunes. Let's see. I don't think we have any radio, but it is what it is. Trying to see if this coolant temp will rise. RPM gauge goes up. We're idling, going back down, sitting at about 1100. That's good. That is good. Super, super happy. Make sure this brakes light will go away, and it does. Brake light comes on. I'm pretty sure our gas gauge is working properly. There we go. So we got about 3,900 RPM. Man, so glad that this thing finally runs. Super, super happy. Now, either the battery is bad or we have a parasitic draw on our battery that we have to start looking at. But as of right now, I do want to drive this thing, but I currently can't because there is a car right behind me and I don't have the keys for it. So she's gonna have to stay in the garage. I'm gonna let her warm up. I'm gonna see if this needle will climb at all. So we'll be right back. Okay, so it's been about roughly 3, 4, 5 minutes for idling, and we are starting to get a coolant temperature indication. No check engine light. Everything is looking really good. We're idling steady. It does hang up a little bit right after you give it some throttle, but then it idles right back down. So everything is looking really, really good. So here is some of the other stereo wiring, as well as this alarm system that was mounted to the car. I talked to the previous owner. They said that this thing would not shut up, and it was actually consistently draining the battery. So I went ahead, took all of that out as well. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 3 of the CRX restoration project. So we got the car running, we fixed the stock wiring. All of this other wiring is now trash. I am so happy that this is finally running on its own OEM wiring. So stick around for episode 4 of the restoration series. Thank you.